I'm recording this video about 10 days after the Super Bowl because something really interesting just occurred to me. Okay, so last year, my friends and I came up with this goofy concept for a party around the Super Bowl that we called Soup or Bowl. It was essentially just a play on a chili cook-off, more or less. And we had so much fun with that last year that we decided to throw it again this year. And me being the nerd I am, last year, Bolt was all the hype, and it was amazing what you could spin up with Bolt. And so I was like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use Bolt. It felt like the perfect use for this, where I could take this tool and I could build an app that I could take to this party where we could all play a digital interactive version of the Squares game. And if you don't know what that game is, it's okay. It's essentially a purely luck-based betting game that often goes alongside the Super Bowl. And this year, again, being the nerd that I am, I decided to build another app that is way more intense. And so what I've just realized is that I think this is my first example of, hey, I've done the same thing essentially 2 years in a row, so a year apart, with different tools because I'm using different tools on a daily basis, and the results are astounding how different they are. And probably the amount of time that I spent on them didn't change that much. So first I want to show you one, how I found the project from last year, what it was, and how it differs from this year. And I'm just going to kind of like give us a cursory overview here. Okay, so I knew I built it in Bolt. So the first thing I did was I went over to Bolt and I searched for Squares because I thought I had called it Super Bowl Squares, which I did. And I found it. And look at this. This is the homepage of the app. And, to my credit, I made it interactive, and you could, and it was for anybody to use. Anybody could spin up their own board and share it with their group of friends and, handle all of the logistics separately. And then I realized, I ended up deploying this to Netlify. At that time, the built-in deployment from Bolt to you were actually going from Bolt to Netlify versus as opposed to kind of being wrapped up in the Bolt deployment method today, which also goes to Netlify, just in a little bit of a different form. And so I came over to Netlify. I found the project. I opened the project up, and it's behind authentication so that the database couldn't be abused. And what I was looking for is I wanted the example of the game that we played last year and the results of the thing. And I was like, where is, so here it is. Here's the production version of it. But I was like, well, what's the board code? How do I find the one that we played? And I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I put them in Netlify blobs. But it came here and there was nothing here. And the reason for that, now remembering back in the past, is because it was really trying to push on full stack applications that could be built with Bolt. And so I remembered that I spun up a Supabase database. And so I went to my account here. Well, this is really small. And I found this Super Bowl Squares app, and the project is paused, but it's not actually paused because it can't be restored. So it is effectively dead. It's not paused. I could download it and recreate it. I am not going to do that. And that's annoying and frustrating to me. So I didn't want to do that. I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I recorded a video for this because it felt like a moment in time. I had really just started trying to embrace AI development more and more. And so I was like, oh, I posted about it on Twitter, but I didn't because I wasn't using Twitter because we had the great exodus from Twitter and everything was over on Blue Sky. So it took me way too long to realize that I essentially posted nothing on Twitter for a long, long time. And eventually I tracked this thing down on Blue Sky. Whoops. And this is, let's see if we can turn the music off here. And I'm going to have to play it in this browser because I'm recording here. So we'll see what we can. Oh, I know what I can do. Can we zoom? Yeah, here we go. Here we go. All right, I think this is about as big as we're going to get. Okay, so let's take it through. I'm going to kind of just skip through this. So I clicked create a board, and then I gave it a name, maximum squares per person, and then I just kind of mimicked each individual player because there was no signing in or anything like. There was no authentication. It was purely on you have a unique URL, so don't go looking for other URLs in game. So then we just kind of put our squares in, and I happened to lay this out in a decent way, but people really struggle with this thing on their phone. And you look at this, and I recall like a really took a long time to iterate on the UI of this because it just wasn't quite there. This is like a minimalistic version that took a while to really get there. And to get it to work decently, even just decently on mobile. And so I'm kind of imitating here different users, and how this process would work. And at the party, people were just picking out their squares, and it wasn't real time or anything. You just had to kind of like click, and hope you weren't conflicting with anything. Then you hit your max. We're kind of playing with the teams that we're playing that's here. Okay. And then everything's filled. And so we got this button down here to assign the team names and numbers. Because basically what you're doing is you're betting on the score for each team at the end of each quarter. And then the money gets paid out in quarters. And you see like it's random. So it's totally random. There is no skill whatsoever required for this game. And so that's what that looked like. But then here's the kicker. I had to figure out how to be able to then determine what to put the scores in there so we could mark the winners. And the thing is, the scores are the same for everybody, no matter how many boards were created. The winners are the winners. And so I ended up making them environment variables and then run this script to update the winners so that the UI updates also in time. And I think that was pretty much it. Do we show that? Oh yeah, we've got the little emojis there that show our winners. Okay, so that was it. And look, it worked. The people at the party used it. It was fine. It worked. This year, I think I really annoyed people, and I went over the top because I was like, okay, well, I can do so much more now in about the same amount of time. So a week before the party, I started building this thing, and it was in awesome shape. I had to make like one or two adjustments during the party, but look at this thing. This is like night and day. And the front end design skill from Claude is just spectacular. And a lot of this didn't come from. I gave it some prompts in terms of but the prompt that I was giving it was more like use typography that you would see on scoreboards on TV. So use some of those like big, bold graphics, but it picked out the colors, it picked out the typography, and it looks awesome. We get a little bit of that shadow treatment. And I made lots of little tweaks along the way. But I even put in a mechanism. So for the actual soup or bowl challenge, the contestants had to put in their entries here, and then everybody did the voting on the app, unless they opted out, then they handed me a piece of paper, and I built in this kind of like proxy voting system here as well. So I won't go into that. It was pretty cool. But I had built the squares game for this, and then my family, who's all spread out across the country, they were like, well, we want to play a game too. And so then the morning of the Super Bowl, I was typing with Claude and just like, hey, we've got this functionality. Let's duplicate it, but let's keep the admin controls in place. And so first of all, everyone has a profile here. You can change your image, you can change your name, and you can put your entry in for the competition. And then there are different roles in here. So I happen to be an admin, but you can go to the Squares game and you can see this. Now this is the end result, but this is like this really nice UI, and everyone at the party, of course, no one had computers. They were working on their phones, so it had to be mobile friendly. So they're clicking through here. And one of the really cool things was we were a little bit more spread out last year. This year we were tucked into one room. And as people were choosing these squares, it felt like real time. It wasn't technically a real time application, but it felt real time. So that as someone was picking, you saw all the other squares that were being picked at the same time. And so we ran into zero conflicts there, even though everyone essentially picked their squares within the same couple of minutes. And then we added another feature here that was actually predicting the score. Maybe it was a fifth prize to offer some ability to, I don't know, use some of your football insight knowledge or whatever. And then I have this whole admin area. So no environment variables, but I could lock and unlock the game. I could control the number of squares that the users had. I could set the scores for each quarter. And if you saw that, we mark out the quarter winners here. When the game was active, this was my proxy pick. So if somebody didn't want to use the application, I could go in on behalf of that person and put them in there. I could save the final score. We can see the winners of the score predictor and all of that. And so all of this is right here. It's now in a Neon database, which will still be there in a year because locked or disabled is not the same as deleting it and not being able to recover it. So this is here. I think I annoyed everybody sufficiently, but now at least they expect it from me. And so if we have a third installment of this party, I'm really looking forward to it because, I mean, what is web development going to look like in a year from now? Will I iterate on this? Will I be able to spin up something better? I don't even know what better is. It's pretty dang good. Is it going to be in the UI? Is there going to be? Should I make a mobile application because it'll just be so fast to develop things that in languages that I don't even know how to write manually today? I don't know. And that's what I kind of love about this project, and I do hope it continues for that reason because it's this grounding thing now in this age of just rapid advancement. That we get to kind of stop for a minute and say like, okay, well, I did really heavy development on one project for 1 week in early February every year. And it's sort of the state of like, what you have 1 week to build this thing. How advanced can you make it? How beautiful can you make it? How good can you make the experience? To what extent will you annoy the hell out of your friends at your Super Bowl party? So, every year, or the last 2 years, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get ahead of this. I'm going to create it early. I'm going to share it. People are going to use it. And the reality is it's not true. One, I don't ever get ahead of it. And two, it's just for us. And that's where I want to wrap today is to say this. I've been saying, I think that we're in this age of the personal app. Now there's really, really cool things being built and the markets are expanding, not contracting. And so there is more opportunity, and there's a lot of fear around like, well, what is SaaS and what, and what is the future of the UI on the web and all of that. But I think what's really cool right now is I feel like we're in this age of the personal app. So yeah, I could spin stuff up on Bolt last year and it worked. But now it's like, I can dream up anything I want and it looks really good and it works really, really well. So this was a fun exercise to just start and complete within a week. And I think it reflects why I'm also so much more excited about what we can build and the future now than I was a year ago, where I just wasn't seeing it. Now I see it. Now I feel it. And I'm excited about what the Soup or Bowl 2027 site will look like. All right. I'll see y'all next time.